You know what I forgot to do? Give away dice.
Oh, I'm
That's
streaming
okay.
now, so.
Hmm?
Hey, people. Name's Rob. I play Sovelias. I need to switch the picture now. There we go. So, I play Sovelias on the Ghost of Machine. Real life, I'm a software engineer. I've been, so I've been playing D&D since high school. Been switched between 3.5, 4E, 5E for a while now. Had a bit of downtime between high school and college where I didn't play a bunch, but just recently with this group, it's been good enough that we've just played a lot. Going into more questions now. So the story behind how I picked Sovelias is a little interesting. So I originally started by playing a dwarf gunslinger a while ago for intro campaign. So I was really playing around with that idea. I built them, played around with them, didn't necessarily like the way it felt. I was also watching the Netflix series, the new Castlevania cartoon that came out at the time. And so I think in the last episode of it, it was Alucard that had a rapier fighting and was jumping around and very acrobatic. I thought, well, that would be a really cool fighting style for a character, and I had come across blade singers in the book at the time. And so I had built a character around that was a mage tank. I thought that was interesting, and it's worked out really well so far, and so I kind of built around that, kind of built the backstory, worked with Matt, our GM, to figure out how that fit into our campaign and how that would work with the story and stuff, and it actually seemed to work out pretty well and integrate into the backstory of the campaign. So that worked out nicely. So when I usually create characters, I tend to make stuff that is relatively different from myself. So I don't try to have my character be something that I would normally be or anything that I would do. Even though usually when I play, I end up turning my character into myself still. But so there's a lot of differences between myself and Sovelias. Though I guess one similarity would be that we're both kind of quiet and calculating a bit. So Sovelias right now is kind of just biding his time, gathering information before he acts, figuring out what his next step needs to be before actually trying to step on anyone's toes or move forward. So, and that's kind of going into his background of how he is too, being a disposed noble after the Elven Wars, is that you kind of have to sit there and fit in and just wait and bide your time before you can actually pick up an act and gather your resources. So I think that will fit in nicely. So the most difficult and easiest thing about playing my character. So the thing I've run into with Sovelias is that the elves are supposed to have a southern accent, but I'm not very good at accents yet. So I've tried playing around with the southern accent. Hasn't worked out, still working on it. So right now I felt that's the most difficult thing, but I turned that around and kind of worked it into my backstory that in order to integrate with Gish culture and not be like completely kicked out of being a noble, is that I started in talking with a Gish accent instead, which is just standard North American transatlantic or Atlantic or whatever it is.
Transatlantic.
Transatlantic. Yep, got it. So kind of going into that. So hopefully by the time I get to the point where Sovelias kind of reveals himself more as an elf, as a leader, is that I'll start getting better at that southern accent so I can start switching into it to kind of throw people off. So favorite moment in the game. So there's been a couple of really good moments in this game so far. So I actually picked two. One of them we did on the previous introductory stream that was outside of what we actually streamed. One of them is actually on the stream. So the one that I really liked that was off stream was the assassination of Duke Norian. So we were attending a concert with Morgan, and so she was singing, but they had actually cast a spell, I don't know, it was like a general charm spell, I guess, that was affecting the whole audience. We don't know, it was huge. But basically everyone, a lot of people failed to save, almost everyone in the concert hall, but because I was an elf, I got advantage, and I didn't fail to save. But then I pretended to not fail to save in order to not arouse suspicion. Then I saw Beverly, who you've seen on stream, go and actually murder Duke Norian and then run away. Well, I sit there and like, well, here we are dancing, intoxicated by this charm spell. Rolling deception checks, so hopefully those went well and nobody noticed. But I really, really liked that moment because I felt that was a really good Sovelias moment. While I supported Beverly and I kind of supported disposing the Gish nobles and whatnot, I didn't want to make my move right then. So it really fit into how Sovelias is. On stream was when the Son of Storms grabbed that train car and flew off with it, and the sword broke and fell to the ground. I had to make a really decision there because Sovelias knows that, or well, not Sovelias knows. Sovelias doesn't know anything. Me as the player knows that Justice will murder me if I try to get the sword, but Sovelias as the character does not, and like getting that sword and claiming that as a symbol for the disposed elves really, like, it's like, okay, well, here we go. If I grab it and it's the real one, I'm gonna get murdered, but oh well. We'll see what happens. So I thought that was a really awesome moment. So is there any aspect of my character that I did not prepare for or that surprised me in the game? So going in, I had thought a lot about Sovelias and kind of his backstory and how to line up and how to play the wizard and how to play the blade singer, and done a lot of research. So there wasn't anything that like really jumped out that I didn't necessarily prepare for. There, character-wise, like mechanics-wise, all that, I almost fully understand it. But the main thing that really has tripped me up is that the GM keeps throwing really difficult decisions at us that aren't like cut and clear black and white. And so that's probably the hardest thing I've had so far, is trying to figure out what to do, where I want to go, or what the actual right choice is to make that won't end up with bad things happening to either side. So, favorite fight in the game. Okay, so I have two again because I really like these. So the first one was off stream, where we fought a bunch of ethereals after we had been teleported into the past. And so we had just leveled up, so nobody knew what other new spells people had. And I think my favorite part is when, so all the ethereals were grouped into this one side, Justice had gone over there to backstab one. I believe it was I Misty Stepped or I ran up in front, but Justice had positioned himself in a spot that basically, this was the first time I used Thunderstep, so I grabbed him like you can do with Thunderstep and then teleported him away while dealing a ton of damage all at once.
25 points of damage out of 3d10.
Yeah. So just an insane amount of damage. Knocking a couple of them down, I think, and killing them. But that was just a very good moment that I liked. On stream, it was when we were against the zombie cats, and I felt like I had really started to understand how to play Sovelias and how to move him around the battlefield, and the amount of mobility I have with being able to like cast a range spell, then immediately move in to take hits, and then immediately jump back out in order to defend my other party. So I have a lot of movement spells, I have a lot of like big AoE attack spells, as well as definitely some good solid melee fill-ins. So what location in Edda am I excited to visit? So I would really, really like to go to Droska at some point. I think Droska would be really interesting. I'd love to meet Sovelias' aunt and kind of learn some new stuff from her, see how that's worked out. As well as with some of the stuff Celine has been doing with her cloak and with ruins and whatnot. I think it would be really interesting to dig up like the old stuff out of Droska. Because it's kind of like, I guess Sovelias kind of knows what Droska's like because he's probably been there a couple of times. But like me as the player, I don't know like what's over on that whole side of the continent over there, which should be really interesting. Also, there was an island in one of our pre-games that would be really interesting to go back to at some point. But I'm sure we'll find out more about that later.
I don't know anything.
Uh-huh. Sure. So if I had to play one of the other characters in the group, who would it be and why? So this one I actually had to sit and think about quite a bit because I really like playing Sovelias. So I didn't necessarily want to like consider not playing him, but I think out of all the other characters that I want to play, it would probably be Justice. So I haven't played a monk or a rogue yet, and I think I really like that combination. It feels very natural, very good, and I think it would be super fun to play with that play style. So I do have favorite dice. So my two favorite dice are these. They're tiny precision dice. They're pretty much all I use. The green one's my main one. The orange one is my secondary. So whenever I roll with advantage, I know which one's my first and second. I don't have any dice superstitions. As a computer scientist that deals with random numbers and all that, like, they're dice. They're random. They're just... Okay. Booze from the peanut gallery. They're wrong, though. It's okay.
I agree.
Yeah.
Can't be the peanut
The
gallery.
DM agrees.
That's right.
You're wrong.
Allergic to the peanut gallery.
So yeah, those are my dice. Alright, and the final question. What creates a good gaming session for me? What advice could I give to be a better player? So the first part. So I think the best gaming sessions I've had is when there's action and excitement that includes the entire party. So working together as a team to overcome obstacles or to solve puzzles really resonates with me. I think that's great when you have all the players working together to overcome something that's relatively difficult or that might be challenging. And you get a lot of good character interaction and player interaction back and forth when that's the case. And it really helps bring a party together. It really helps solidify good points in the story, I think, too, and builds a lot on the roleplay there. Some advice. So before in my previous sessions, I used to have a relatively large issue with cross-talking, and our entire group kind of did. But like ever since we started talking about it and bringing it to the front, like crosstalk is fun, but it really distracts and breaks the flow. So the most important thing is to keep the flow of the game going and keep it entertaining, because then everyone's entertained. And anything where you're breaking that flow, such as cross-talking, cracking jokes, yeah, it's fun, but like the DM's trying to tell a story. If you distract from that, you might miss an important part. As well as like knowing your character and really understanding all the mechanics behind it and what stuff you have at your disposal in order to make yourself a better player. Because also not knowing the rules when it comes time to act in combat or it comes time to do something in combat, like it really super breaks the flow of like the action and the intents, because you're stopping and you have to pull up a PHB and you have to look up a rule and sit there and wait in silence while you hunt through all this stuff. And like maintaining the flow is probably the most important thing in a game. So I believe that's all the questions. So if anyone from chat has any questions for me, I'll be more than happy to answer them. If not, then I will kick it back to the logo music and we'll be sitting in chat. What?
Dice giveaway.
Alright, we can dice giveaway.
Let's just tell us more how we
Tell
love
us more about
the
how much
DM.
you love the DM. Yeah, he's amazing. Best DM we have. Hands down.